Hello, and welcome to this discussion tonight on the Athletics Code of Conduct for Parents at Hebron Academy. We want to start by stating the reason you are here is because we understand how important athletics are to you and your sons and daughters, and we know that you all have their best interests in mind when it comes to watching them compete at the interscholastic level. Before we get going, I would like all of you to close your eyes. Now, think of a time when you have been at one of your children's sporting events when a parent made themselves the center of attention. Were they mouthing off to the referee? Or were they questioning the decision of their child's coach? Maybe they were standing near the other team's bench talking poorly about their child's opponent. Worst of all, was this one of the times when they were berating their own child for his or her effort or skill? Think about this incident for a moment. Now, open your eyes. Unfortunately, every one of you has been in attendance at an event where at least one of these things has happened, and in the moment, you have cringed at comments made and wished you were somewhere else. More than anything else, when this happens, the major philosophies of interscholastic athletics are lost, and whether it is a coach, player, or referee that is at the wrong end of this escapade, ultimately, the parent themselves come out looking the worst. Once again, we are glad you are here because we believe that you are an important group to create a strong atmosphere of sportsmanship and fair play that is the cornerstone of the Lumberjack Athletic Department. Without supporting these ideals and helping to instill them into your children, we would not have the wonderful stories that have been part of the past 100 plus years of Hebron athletics. It is important to note that the code of conduct we will speak about today pertains to any time you are watching the Lumberjacks in action, either at home or on the road. We believe that organized sports is an integral part of every student's Hebron experience. The school's athletic programs are devoted to encouraging a lifelong love of physical activity and an appreciation for teamwork and fair play. Hebron students routinely enjoy sports activities of all kinds, and they are encouraged to do so by an active faculty who provides positive examples of healthy competition and cooperation in sports. We need to remember that the majority of these students are simply playing sports because it is what they love to do. When we are on the sideline watching your children, we are not watching a professional sporting event. We are simply in the stands to enjoy healthy competition in front of us that allows these student athletes to represent the Lumberjacks in a way that is important for them outside of the academic classrooms. When they make mistakes, we want to encourage them to keep trying. When they score an important goal, we do not want to rub it in the faces of our counterparts, but we want to celebrate the accomplishment by showing honor and respect. And if there is a moment that you do not agree with, we are going to talk about ways to go about addressing those after the situation rather than directly in the moment. At Hebron, we are a part of the New England Preparatory School Athletic Council, and we abide by expectations and guidelines they set in their code of conduct. While they have 8 guidelines that they ask each school to adhere to, they all ultimately come down to 3 simple philosophies. The first is to treat others well. Just like we were all told when we were young, it is important that we treat others the way that we want to be treated. For all of you in this room, this mostly speaks to officials and coaches. If we can treat them with respect, it will only help foster that same treatment from the students by seeing the example set forth by all of you. Number 2, respect the rules. Without the rules of the game would not really exist as a game. For you as parents, this also means to respect the locations for where you are going to spectate. Please do not go out of those designated areas during contests and cheer loudly but respectfully for the Lumberjacks, not against our opponents. NEPSAC's third principle reminds the students to be gracious in victory and in defeat. NEPSAC adds a caveat that states, especially learn to lose well. As parents, we ask that you help your sons and daughters understand this concept so that they are not making excuses when the outcome does not go their way. In victory, it is also important for our student athletes to respect their opponents in a way in which they would want to be treated after a loss. We have all been in a situation where the game ended 1-0, or a basketball game that came down to the final buzzer. At some point during the game, there was probably a close call by an official. If Hebron is on the losing end of this contest, it is likely that your son or daughter will want to blame the official for that one incident. Ultimately, though, there were probably many moments throughout the game that could have gone slightly better that would have resulted in a goal or an extra 3-point basket. If we are able to help our student athletes understand the chances for them to improve upon those moments, we will be helping them to not make excuses for things that were out of their control. Our code of conduct specific to parents is in front of you, but at the heart of this is the need to respect the coaches of your children. We have hired coaches who are good at what they do, and the majority of them are full-time teachers who understand the balance that is needed for student athletes at this level of play. If you feel the need to talk to a coach about playing time or other specifics about your son or daughter's membership on that team, we ask that you wait until at least 24 hours until after the completion of the event in question to talk to the coach. We also ask that if you are going to talk to the coach about your son or daughter, that your child be included in the discussion. One of the toughest situations for our coaches is when a parent emails them or talks to them and starts the conversation with, "Please don't tell my child we are talking because they would be very mad at me." This has happened many times in my career as a coach, and all it does is put a strain on a relationship that I am trying to create with my players. Instead, please ask your student to advocate for themselves or include them in the discussion right from the beginning. As educators, we feel that our students have the ability to advocate for themselves, and we want them to create relationships with their coach that will be similar to that of professional relationships later on in their lives. Many of our coaches live on campus in the dorms and teach your child in one of their academic classes. The relationships that are formed from these multifaceted aspects of school life often give the students the confidence to have conversations with their coaches about tough topics. If you feel the need to address situations with our coaches, our hope is that the first comment to your son or daughter will be to have them go directly to the coach themselves. Many of our coaches grew up playing the sport that they're coaching, and a lot of them went on to play that sport at the collegiate level. They have all been in similar situations as players and students in their past, and they have a great number and amount of respect for students who advocate for themselves and then hold themselves accountable for their actions. We require that all parents and spectators stay in the designated spectator areas. In these areas, we also ask that you refrain from using alcohol, tobacco, or any drugs. Additionally, our spaces are not usually very big, and so we ask that you are friendly with opposing fans. Despite the fact that you are rooting for opposite teams, chances are that the parents you are sitting next to are pretty similar to you in terms of just wanting to enjoy watching your children compete. It does not help what is already a potentially tense situation if the fans are being combative. Think back to that incident you recalled when we first started this conversation today. How could that have been handled differently if fans from both teams were interacting with each other in positive ways? You have made the choice to send your son or daughter to a private boarding school in Maine. Most of our opponents are in similar situations to your child, and having an outlet for exercise and competition outside of the classroom is a healthy way to live. Our final regular season hockey game of the season always seems to be a very tense atmosphere up at our rival Kent's Hill. During that game, many administrators at both schools actually stand together in the middle of the stands, and we keep our students separate from each other. However, many of us also spend a lot of time during that game talking with one another in very cordial ways about all sorts of topics, while at the same time we are rooting for opposing teams in front of us in a positive way. If this can be done by our parents at games as well, it sets a great tone outside of the playing area for our students who are spectating whatever event is in front of them. In the same way that we as administrators act at the final hockey game of the season, leading by example is a great way to think about acting at sporting events. As parents, it is ultimately up to you to set a standard of respect for others, the game, and the students themselves. If you are cheering on your children and their friends, you are supporting the coaches, and you are quiet even when the referee makes a terrible call, your children are more likely to act in a similar way. They look up to you, and they appreciate all that you have done to give them the opportunity to play for the Lumberjacks. If you are screaming negative comments at the referees or questioning the coach's decisions after a tough loss, they will simply do the same thing. As I stated at the beginning of this presentation, the games that you are watching are not that of professional athletes. We are trying to teach your children about opportunities they may have in the future, and we want them to be active participants in the world in a positive way. By teaching them about these principles in sports, we are able to give them a great foundation for their professional lives away from athletics. Thank you for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you on the sidelines supporting the Jacks.